I'm so excited that you're using the GT. How did you discover the GT and how long have you been into it?
In 2015, I decided to start building this with my buddy Nate Stone. He was my tech at the time, and has been a longtime friend of mine. We knew we needed a lot of MIDI notes in a lot of places, because I knew that I wanted to use Ableton. I knew the buttons we would need access to, but I didn't know where they would need to be, how many of them we would need. And so we were just looking for something that could send MIDI signals that was just like a blank slate, so that we could customize it and use it in multiple different ways, multiple different purposes, etc. And it was just, it was the most obvious. We bought 3 of them. We bought every size, because we were like, we know we're gonna need this on this side of the stage, we're gonna need this here, and let's just see how we end up using them. Last year was the first time we actually toured it. Up until then, I'd only done like one-off, a song at an awards show here, a song at a TV show here, so everything was very song specific. And then when we started building a tour, that's when it really got like kind of down to the what are the essentials. And what I realized was, you know, we decided to use Ableton because it's an infinite looper. You know, you have sort of an XY grid. You can do multiple scenes. It's not linear. You can cut stuff and mute stuff and start and stop stuff every time, at any time. What I liked about this was it gave me the option to have Ableton look like a looper pedal board on stage. And so we kind of created this layout, and it started with a 50-song set list, and I just spent weeks of figuring out how every song would fit into that format. And then we just kind of grew from there. We've automated some things now, but the first tour was just me and that was my entire show, looper pedal board running Ableton. So that's now the kind of the center of the show. That's what I go to for every song. Start every song by figuring out our BPM, and then that gives me a click. I've got just kind of a MIDI note sent to a kick sound, so that I can just start a kick sound anytime. I've got my stop, obviously. We've got a live track because all the tracks are muted, but this is record enabling through, 1 through 6. And then I can stop every track individually, except for that one. This is a funny story, I'll tell you in a minute. And this is individual starts for these first 2 tracks, and then this is scene starts, so that I can do like a verse and a chorus, an outro, intro, etc. This one I use as a set list, essentially. I've got my master stop button, and then I've got kind of my return to home, I call them. That helps me get back to that sends a program change to the quad cortex. And then same for electric. The kick's still on just because I started a second ago. And then these are the songs that we've automated with MIDI clips that run Ableton for us. So this is just my set list for like the autopilot songs, I call them. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just you, and it's all these instruments.
Yeah.
So you've gotten into this. It's just, I feel like you're doing your own thing. It's so different than anybody else.
I appreciate you saying that. It was a unique opportunity to start something different. My first gig coming back in from the pandemic was me solo with a guitar, and I loved it. And the crowd was amazing. The venue was perfect, and thoroughly it gave me so much life after that show that I was like, I love playing with a band. I love big productions. And what if we did this as a tour? And I think it's been in the back of my mind for like 10 years to have sort of a off-touring other tour that I could do that allows me to sort of tell a bit more my story as a musician / singer-songwriter, and less like these are the hits, these are the songs. This is more like these are the deep album cuts, and these are the songs that people tell me they want me to play that I never get to play. And this is why this song exists. And this is also how I work. So I knew I wanted to do a solo show, but I also didn't want to just be on stage with me in acoustic. I wanted options. And so that's when this kind of got out of control, because I knew that I could loop, I could build songs. I had done things in the past where I had built the song as the song was as I was playing the song. And the relationship with this and Ableton, everything sort of dancing together, kind of gave me the studio on a stage option. And so the first tour was very much us just going like, we don't know what we're going to do every night, because every room was different, every audience was different, and no one knew what we were doing either. So it was this fun, like, challenging, every single night was kind of like reading the room, like, what do people want? Do they want like a bunch of do they want me looping and building songs, or do they want to just sit and talk? And so we learned a lot from those first 8 shows, And then we went back in and started really getting specific on what things we knew we wanted to program and stuff. But to your point, I guess, is I didn't really know what to expect from this either. And it is different every night. Every audience, every room is very different. But there's just enough flexibility because it is just me and I can do anything at any time, you know. And there's a lot of stuff that we've prepped so that, you know, if we want to go through a show and it's all, you know, automated looping, it just kind of allows me to do that without thinking too much about it. Record in front of people and like kind of give them a little bit of both, like my nerdiest music self and also like my human I write songs for people self. So that's kind of what this has become.
So it seems like with the way you do your show and with all the looping, it kind of gives you a chance to really engage with the audience and tell a story.
Yeah, this is a very interactive show. And we kind of like, I mean, I think we knew that going into it, but it's definitely, it was designed to be that way, you know, because again, like, I don't know, I just can't stress that enough. Like, this is a tour where every day is very different from the last. Even if we play the exact same set list, it's a drastically different show. Rather than hiding behind planning and prep and a consistent set list and a production, I think it forced me to kind of step out. And I think I started to realize in the first couple of shows that I'm going to have to be present for this, you know, not to overuse the word, but like, I'm really going to have to be here. I can't phone this one in. I've got to be here. I've got to be reading these people. I've got to be kind of conversing. And I've also got to be aware of what I'm saying and if it's coming across, you know what I mean? Like, or musically and sort of speech-wise. So yeah, I jokingly tell everybody at the beginning of the show, it's the nerdiest thing I've ever done. But I think a lot of music, it's what's great is like the music people see it and appreciate it and get it. And even if you don't get it, even if you're not musical, like, it's still just fun, you know? Yeah. And it has that human element.
And what's the response been? Would you ever go back to a band, or are you loving this so much?
Very much still do both.
Okay.
Very much don't want to like, no, I mean, we've got just as many band shows this year. And that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted, when we started talking about it originally, I was like, I definitely want to keep a balance, you know? What I've seen is people who have come to a lot of shows, but they've never heard the one song they wish I would play. Or they've, you know, a lot of people who've not been able to come to a show, this is their first show, and they get introduced to the thing I do, my music, in a very conversational way, versus like, here's a big show, here's all the music, you know, here's some stuff you've heard, some stuff you haven't. It's way more conversational. And so I think what we've seen on this tour is just that. I think it's a deeper connection when people come in, because we get to know each other, each other's personalities. You know, I'm joking with the crowd, I'm getting to know them. They're getting to request songs that we don't normally get to play, you know? So, and I'm making a lot of it up on the spot. I definitely want to highlight Nick, and Nick helped not only to program all this stuff, but he obviously runs it with me every day. He's my co-pilot. He sits on the side and keeps an eye on everything. So this is Nick Huff, ladies and gentlemen.
And so when did you get into the GT? The same time he did, in 2015?
I've only been with Hunter since about December, November of this past year. So that was my first exposure to it. And just the blank slate thing, like you were saying, was so huge that the GT is a blank slate, that Ableton can be a blank slate for us. And that we have those two blank slates working together so that we can create something this is, like you said, is so unique. We were talking about some of the programming we have to do, and Matt was like, man, these sentences you're talking about just haven't been formulated in human history before. Just because it's a lot of wacky stuff that we're doing, but the blank slate of the RJM and Ableton really just make it able to happen.
Is this something you need to program daily or weekly, or you've pretty much left it alone?
So there's so many sort of categories of programming.
Mm-hmm.
This lives exactly as it is. And so the funny story, so the first show we did, so I bought this one used, not this one, actually this is a brand new one I just ordered from you guys.
Yeah.
When we were building the show, I knew I wanted to loop, right? And I knew I wanted to use Ableton, but that's an endless slate of things. And I knew that we would have to limit to something. And so I started with this, and I tried to figure out how to just, you know, if I could build my own looper today, what would it look like? Right? And so that's where I started with this. And I realized, man, that extra row would be really helpful. So I bought one. I could only find it used at the time because we needed it like tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so I got the other one used, and was in great shape. It held up through rehearsals, and something happened on the first day before sound check. But it was so mission critical that I was like, I don't want to ship this back. We have, like, this is my entire show. And so on the old one, we had a piece of duct tape, and Nick put the smiley face over that button, and we reconfigured the entire board. But I got so comfortable with it, I was like, I can't switch it now. Like, that's literally,
That's what it's.
even though it works, that's how it has to look, at least for the rest of this tour. This is what allowed me to start rehearsing the show before we even built it. Was like figuring out, okay, if I've got 6 tracks, I can have 1 dedicated to bass, I can have 2 dedicated to perk, or like 1 scene for the first 2. And then, you know, the next 3 tracks could be like all the filler stuff. 5 is typically like my effects track, like that's where I put a bunch of like reverby stuff. 3 and 4 kind of carry the weight of everything. 1 and 2 are just kind of 1 scene tracks. Yeah, this became the thing that allowed me to start practicing the show, which is how the show got sort of like built. Every day I'd be sending these guys text and like audio messages like, okay, I think I've got it down, you know, to this. And that means we're gonna need this over here, this is gonna have to live over here. And it would change every night because I'm learning old songs again, but also figuring out how do I build a set list of 50 songs. How do I build each one of these and what has to change? So that's where it started. And then now, like I said, we've automated some songs, but I can still stop and change and record and do all the stuff at any time.
There was so many options, but because of the blank slate thing like we were talking about,
Yeah.
there's so many options. This whole thing started with you in your living room with that pedal board, just figuring out how to narrow down all your options to
Yeah.
do what works best for you.
Yeah, yeah,
There's a million ways we could have done this, but this
Right.
is the one we chose because it's what worked best with you.
yeah. So like that's stayed exactly the same since, I think it was a week before we started rehearsals for the last tour that I was just rehearsing at home by myself. That format has stayed exactly the same. We've swapped like 2 buttons just because I realized as I'm standing up here, like I have to be able to access the things I need the most are kind of living right here, and then I can step back and do other things. This one hasn't really changed since we started the tour.
Yeah, that's just a set list of all the songs that are like automated to run themselves.
Yeah.
This is just a set list of all those, and we've got a couple pages of them here.
Yeah. And like I said, some return to homes so that I know that no matter what song I'm on, no matter what program change we've done, everything goes back to 0, you know, in between songs so that I have kind of a safe place to go to. And having this as a set list is amazing. I mean, it's like having a mouse
Yep.
on stage as a pedal board. So yeah, that's been great. Programming wise, I mean, like we're sending, you know, getting into the Ableton side of it. This is the secret of the show, and it's kind of the mystery for a lot of people. So I do want to say it, and you'll be able to explain it better. So he'll do the nicer version, I'll do the dumb version. But in Ableton, every button is MIDI assignable. So that meant, you know, years ago when I got this, I realized everything I was doing with this to loop at home and like build tracks, you know, select the track, select the scene to record into, delete, undo, mute the track, select the next scene, all those things. Everything I was doing on here was MIDI assignable. So then it was like, okay, well then can we have a MIDI clip, just like an audio clip would fire in a normal playback rig? Can we have a MIDI clip that we just hit play on that runs the song? So that's exactly what we do during the show is we have just MIDI telling the software what to do for these automated songs. And it's just selecting record enabling, selecting the scene. It's telling it where to record, when to record, and when to play back based on the song. And it's all timing and it's all empty. So the only way to test it is to actually play through it. But we're sending, so those are programmed and those kind of stay tucked away in a very safe folder. I don't know if you ever touch them, but we don't touch them once they work because it's like it's sorcery. We're also sending some program changes, etc. And then I wanted to communicate what I was doing with the production, so we send MIDI notes to lighting instead of time code so that the amps in the back actually reflect when I'm recording and when things are playing back. So if you really follow along, you can watch the whole arrangement on the back wall of the show. Yeah. So that was a fun discovery at the end of rehearsals this last time. We were like, we have to visually tell people what's going on. And some people catch it, some people don't. It's a fun kind of trick. I've told a lot of fans what to look for, you know? But yeah, first song you'll see, like, that box goes red when I'm recording, and then it goes to green when it's playing back, and then the next box goes to red when I'm recording and green, etc. So that's another
That's really great.
that's another bit of programming that we had a lot of fun with.
These are all the program songs. These are all just notes. Yeah, that are set to control Ableton. Like you said, every button can be MIDI assigned, and so these are the ones, like I said, we found the most useful if they were MIDI assigned. Record enabling the tracks, starting certain scenes, stopping certain scenes, stopping everything, and then also things like the kick here, like a failsafe, just to have just a 4-on-4 kick to always resort back to. And then we're also sending program changes to the quad cortex so that do we want to talk about that?
Sure.
We're
Yeah.
sending program changes to the quad cortex as Hunter can. Basically, the way we have it set up is on A is just the regular guitar tone, and then on B it's a bass sound,
Yeah.
and then C is a kick drum.
So we're able to send basically audio as a trigger, the way you would just any other drum trigger,
Right.
to the SPD. So I get the same kick sound as the kick that I have over there. And on the electric channel, sorry, Nick, just, we can do the same thing with, I get all these little sounds.
And so in Ableton, we have all of these scene changes automated because if you think about it, if Hunter has to be on stage, play everything, all the parts in the song right the first time, he's only got 2 feet, you know?
Yeah, a little bit of
So-
tap dancing.
Exactly.
It's a lot of
More
tap dancing.
country than tap dance.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. So we chose to automate a lot of that stuff so
Yeah.
that Hunter is able to like focus on performing.
Yeah.
and just
Top layer is automated, bottom layer is kind of like to taste.
Yeah.
because also you really enjoy having you like using actual pedals. So
Yeah.
this is kind of the nice hybrid of it. You get
Yeah.
the automation to help you out, but you get the feel of a real pedal board too, right?
Yeah, like we've got, that's just a mute because I couldn't live without just a single mute button. Feels like a waste of a pedal, but this is like the freeze function. So I use that on a lot of songs to start. That's the first loop I'll introduce, just because it kind of gives some kind of sound so that if the loop messes up, there's something there. Run it through some verb, and then delay. So it's like automated, manual, etc. So that's that program change. The way that we use Ableton is how we're looping, right? We're recording into a clip, into a scene, and then we press play on that, it plays back. We can go to another scene on the same track, set record it to that clip, and then as we build, we can change the scene back to, okay, let's go back to the verse things that we recorded, let's go back to the chorus things we recorded. Well, in Ableton, they actually have a linear looper, which is record, overdub, and play. And so even within all the automated songs, or even outside of it, but no matter what I call this like the main looper is doing, I can come in and record an individual loop that's sort of independent of all of those things. So like when I build like big vocal stacks, I'll use this because it's kind of like, it acts like a little brother to the RJM.
Okay.
And I ran out of buttons.
So the 22 wasn't enough. We should have come out with like a 48. Huh?
Yeah, honestly, I worked with a friend of mine at Pedalnetics, and we built a 9x9 version of a pedal board that was a bunch of MIDI notes. We also then realized that we needed visual feedback, and there was no way to like he designed it and built it in an incredibly quick amount of time, and we got into rehearsals, and I was like, oh, that's also not gonna. So it's been a lot of trial and error, and learning from our mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I'm manually looping and I miss a cue, or I didn't realize I was recording an entire, like sometimes something will be record enabled and I'll cue a scene so that it can play and I can talk to the audience. Then I realize I've recorded everything I've said and tuning into a clip so I can hit undo. So that's actually been really clutch, is having like a keystroke option for that.
Makes sense.
You know, again, only use it in emergencies, but it's been that came in. I used that a lot on the first tour.
Yeah.
I've used it way less I don't think I've used it at all on this tour.
Because we did a lot more automating for this tour with this.
Yeah.
Because on the first tour, this was basically a miniature version of that.
Yeah.
That you had over in piano.
That
world,
lived under the piano.
so that you could still access all the looping functions from the piano.
Yeah, they were
After
kind.
this tour, it's just a set list of songs we've automated.
Yeah.
Wow, you guys have really used this to the max. What's amazing is, you know, Ron comes up with all of this stuff, and then he hears back from the artist, and he's going, I never even thought of using it that way. Like
Yeah.
the creativity of how people are using it. And I mean, this is so creative the way you're
Yeah.
using it. I love
Thanks.
it. It's
Thanks.
amazing.
It's fun.
Doing
Yeah.
a great job. I'm excited. I love what you're doing, and I can't wait to see you know, how high you fly with all this stuff.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I can kind of build a song from scratch so you can kind of see
That'd be great.
the whole process. Okay. Stand at the edge of the unknown with a wide blue sky begins. This is where I take all my Sundays, I stay and cash them in. I close my eyes, cut the cord, drop the chain, and I shed my skin. Funny how you don't know you can fly till you finally catch the ground. But nothing changes your perspective like the teeth sleeping on your lips. Thought I was strong, but I was made of stone, and I'm only here. You think you know the part you played, so somebody goes and rewrites the script. And it felt like falling, but it's funny, I never touched the ground. Welcome to the wild blue, where gravity can't find you. No storm that you can't fly through, place that you can't fly to, up here in the wild blue. Scared of losing, cause losing you meant losing everything. But I found some sunlight in the space you were losing, maybe let them go, yeah. I have the demons that I never knew I had, so many of my own. The more I learn about the love I have to give, the more they beat me. Welcome to the wild blue, where gravity can't find you. No storm that you can't fly through, place that you can't fly to, up here in the wild blue. There you go. It'll be cleaner for the show, but that's a rough version.